Well, excuse my potential ignorance in relation to my inability to be able to come across the Alba Party's population strategy that I will play in just a second that came into discussion during the recent conference that was posted to the YouTube channel. Not entirely sure what this 5 point plan is in particular because I can't find it. That said, a few things I want to say about the Alba Party. The only thing that I actually agree with them on is their alleged anyway opposition to rejoining the European Union, albeit when Alex Salmond was alive back in the day, the guy himself said that EFTA or EFTA was a temporary option until such a time as the people of Scotland determined whether or not they actually wanted to rejoin the European Union. But at the very bare minimum, it's a lot better, at least on paper, than the concept of just simply leaving one union to rejoin another, because it's not fucking independence. However, we're talking about population strategy here, okay? So the Alba Party's conference, they're speaking about this population strategy, this 5 point plan, etc. And as I say, potential ignorance on my part, I can't find it. However, just a few things, okay? Just a few simple things going through their website, sorry. So, for example, Scotland is a rich and diverse nation. Our diversity is perhaps our greatest strength. I mean, off a great start. Clearly, clearly our greatest strength is, according to the 2011 census, our 96% homogenous country, white-wise. Okay, albeit, on an ethnic basis, it was like 87% Scottish, according to the census anyway. But regardless, 96% white. But apparently, our ever increasingly diluted population is somehow our fucking greatest strength. Great stuff, my nationalistic gurus. Okay? The Alba Party, wants to deliver for all who choose to call Scotland a home. Okay? And then, let me get to Scotland's constitution. One of the fundamental reasons so many Scots want independence for Scotland is so that we can create a fair and prosperous society where all our citizens' rights are protected and enshrined in law. Independence is exciting as it allows us to build a new Scotland with a clear set of principles and different type of governance. Only with independence that we are able to chart this new direction for Scotland with a written constitution and a newly elected head of state. Okay. And then there's this. There's no place for racism in Scotland. Define it. Racism's impact in Scotland resonates far beyond its geographical borders. It corrodes the very fabric of our diverse society. What diversity are they speaking about? Seriously. I mean, I know Edinburgh, Glasgow, in particular, are becoming very, very, very noticeably diverse. But in the grand scheme of things, what diversity are they speaking about? This pandering crap has gone on for so long unchecked, and the Alba Party, who are apparently the alleged alternative to the SNP, simply ain't any fucking different. It corrodes the very fabric of our diverse society, fracturing communities. You know, when does the penny drop for some people? When does the penny drop that maybe, potentially, perhaps, dare I say, that the more you begin to import people or allow people to enter your country, irrespective of whether or not you want them there or not, it creates problems. People are, they're tribalistic. It's a human fucking, it's imprinted in everybody. And it's not just something, it's a Scottish issue. It's something, it's an issue all across the fucking world. Pardon my French. I know I'm starting to get a bit animated here, but this stuff really annoys me. And it's always annoyed me. Its insidious presence manifests in disparities. Here we go again. White working class boys in particular, falling behind across the UK, but no, disparities indicate racism. What happens when it's the white kids that are failing? Wow, are they just going to be the forgotten class, are they? On top of that as well, there's this nonsense about disparities. It really is the most easily debunkable talking point. Really is. It does not matter which institution we're speaking about, but I'll use teachers as an example. Okay, so in Scotland, they claim that there's a institutional racism which indicates or implies or showcases as evidence of the fact that there's not enough brown and black teachers in Scotland. Racism, apparently. They base this on the fucking census from 2011. I'm sure it'll be updated when the actual proper statistics and whatnot come out, right? But regardless, so 96% white. So then they say, oh, that means it's 4% non-white. And then they point to teachers in Scotland and they go, well, 4% of the teachers in Scotland should be non-white because it would reflect the census. And because it's not 4% white, that indicates racism. This is all of a sudden a disparity. All you need to do is step back ever so slightly and look to the fact that out of that 4% of people in the country, according to the 2011 census, right, out of that 4%, how many of them are children? How many of them are pensioners? How many of them don't want to go into teaching in the first place? Right? And it all becomes pretty fucking clear. Disparities are natural and organic based on the simple mathematics, demography-wise, of the population. Okay? But it gets worse. Of course it gets worse. Right? To combat racism in Scotland, collective action is crucial. Education is paramount, beginning with anti-racism training in schools, workplaces, and communities. Fostering dialogue and empathy, which you can't teach, can break down stereotypes and biases. Encouraging diverse representation in leadership roles and media promotes inclusivity at the expense of the native population, the indigenous population, or we're just going to pretend that we don't exist anymore. This is what's happening here. This is what's fucking happening here. Anybody can be skeptics. Establishing strong legislative frameworks to address discrimination sends a powerful message that racism won't be tolerated. Define racism. Define racism. And if we're going by this mantra, anti-racism training, then fuck me, we're in for a bumpy ride, because anti-racism is critical race theory, and I have proven that time and time again on this channel. To no avail, of course, because everybody just thinks I'm a crackpot, clearly. You know what, though? You can call me all the names under the sun, and you can make fun out of me, and you can call me a lolcow and all that shit from my previous mental breakdown and whatnot. But one thing I have remained consistent on is standing up for kids. You know what I mean? What the fuck are these cunts doing? What are they doing? Oh, we need anti-racism training. Based on what? Based on what? Oh, my disparities. My disparities. Yeah, okay. Anyway.
I'll hear you all, so be prepared. Conrad, welcome.
Dear friends and comrades, as you can hear, and some of you know me, I'm Polish and I'm Scottish. By my heart, by truth of my deep soul.
Despite the thunderous applause and the empty platitudes and these baseless terms that they always use, I'm always left dumbfounded. They talk about racism, which I just showcased, right? And this guy goes on to talk about it briefly as well, which I'll get to in just a second, right? If anybody, irrespective of colour, religion, melanin, etc., can come to this country and proclaim to be Scottish, then it really does simply come down to the old cliche of if everybody can be Scottish, then nobody is Scottish. He says he's Polish and Scottish. So my one question would be, and I know I'll be accused of being a racist for this, what, have you got a Scottish parent? Have you got a Scottish grandparent? Is part of your lineage, your DNA, etc., is it Celtic, is it Scottish? If it's not, then you ain't Scottish. Just because you live here doesn't make you fucking Scottish. And that should not be problematic. It shouldn't be problematic, but it has become increasingly problematic, deliberately so. You're not Scottish unless you have ancestry that would indicate otherwise. And I don't understand why this is becoming such a taboo topic. but it has become increasingly so. Why? Because we need to normalise the concept of opening our borders. That is why. For inclusion. Yes, Glenn, yeah.
I write the comments, I discuss in the social media, and I find something new, which I haven't experienced a couple of years ago. When I discuss, I don't know, under the national positions, I read commentaries like, why do you care about Scotland? Why do you care about our affairs? I try to explain that I am Polish and I'm Scottish. I live here, I pay taxes here, I vote here.
I will leave it.
I try to learn Scottish traditions. I actively support Scottish independence. So why people asking me such issues? Why they think that they are better Scots than me?
A better Scot than me. Oh, I mean, this is such gutter bollocks, like this. Why are they asking me? They better Scot than me. I'm sorry, if somebody from fucking Tokyo it's so. I don't even want to say at this point now. I mean, you can't change facts. You can't change reality. Yeah, you're either Scottish or you're not. I don't give a fuck if you learn our traditions. I don't give a fuck. Quite frankly, yeah. I mean, it's good that you are doing that. I mean, that indicates integration is something that seems to be sort of distasteful to suggest that immigrants should do at this point. But you're not Scottish, and that's not. I don't understand why that is taboo. I don't understand that. But they asked me if they better skipping me. I mean, fuck you on me. Who's asking you this? Who's asking you that? What is it? A Scottish person? Is that a Celtic person asking you that? I don't know. But regardless, I mean, when are the indigenous people of this land going to come first? That is my question. There is one woman, and I will play her after this guy. There is one woman who actually brings up the term indigenous, which is a rarity nowadays, you know? And it was good to hear. But this guy, honest to fuck.
But a couple of years ago, I believe I haven't faced such discussions. We like to think that trait of racism, of intolerance is...
Define it. Define racism. I'd love them to, but they never do.
Something completely alien to Scotland. And I agree. That's something which we could call the British disease, because racism is imprinted in the United Kingdom as a state, as an imperial.
So racism is British. That's a British disease. This is a guy who claims he's Polish and Scottish, by the way. So, you know, remind me again, how many immigrants come into Poland, buddy? I know the border's a bit less stringent now, obviously, with Tusk and whatnot, but regardless, remind me again. Is that racism? Are you going to call Poland racist? No, of course you're not, because you're over here in Scotland. And part of the problem with immigrants speaking on behalf of Scotland is that they have to obviously protect their fucking place in society. So they're obviously going to speak this sort of mantra, rhetoric, etc. But it's just so... I mean, I don't think there's one country in the world that isn't racist, so to speak. Countries exist at present for the very simple fact that they put their populations first and had fucking borders to protect said populations. But no, all of a sudden now we need to erase that idea.
Reality state. Scotland was, and Scotland is, and Scotland will be always different, open, inclusive, and accepting all the differences of the people coming here to live in the land of the free.
at the expense of our own. Well, we've always been different, apparently. Yeah, I guess you could maybe make that argument. We always were different to a certain extent back in the day, before we, entered a union willingly back in the day. And this is coming from somebody who, in an ideal world, would support independence. I'm an independent supporter, always have been. But regardless, we entered a union willingly back in the day. But let's not get too bogged down in historical facts, buddy. But regardless of that fact, though, we've always been different. Yeah, okay, even Karl Marx back in the day spoke about the Scottish Highlanders and the Slavics and whatnot. We need to get rid of them. They didn't really fit into his little plan that he had back in the day, etc. But yeah, we were always different. Who is the we you speak of? Oh, you mean the Celtic people, the ethnic Scottish people that were always in this land once upon a time called fucking Picts? Now we've just been renamed to Scots. We, no you, we, I. Mm-hmm. This is what I'm on about. Like, I hate when people harken back to our history. They harken back to Scottish history, but simultaneously insinuate or imply that anybody can be Scottish. Then what is Scottish history? Who is the we you speak of? Is it the people that just resided on the land at one point in time? Or is it the people that made the fucking country in the first place, aka, by extension, giving us the history that you can then in turn relate to or refer to? Jury's out on that one, buddy.
I'm also a PhD researcher. I've done some PhD research in sociology and immigration studies down there in England. I was in Southport, I was in Tamworth. I've observed these so-called ethnic riots. And I must tell you that I can recognize provocations. I can recognize when the small political groups would like to gain something, just playing with people's instinct, fears, loneliness, lack of answers, lack of solving real problems. And I don't want to see that it could happen, that could repeat in Scotland. I know that during canvassing, going from door to door here in Scotland, we very often hear that migration is something very important for the people. It was growing, this was increasing, this statistic shows that it was much more during the Brexit campaign. After that it decreased again, but now migration is seen as important issue. So we have to be prepared to face that, to deliver some answer for the people. SNP government and SNP itself is like always problem blind. They say there's no problem. When we, don't say anything more about it, problem will solve itself. The Reform UK is problem itself. That's obvious. A lot of people believe, very young people believe, that independence bring solutions for the better life, for the daily problems of common Scots. And when SNP failed to deliver independence, some of these young people could turn to forces giving them false answers. So we need to deliver true answers for the real problems. I strongly support motion proposed by my friends from Aberdeen, Gavin and David, and as a new Scot, as a Scot by my choice, as a Scot by my heart, I ask...
You're not Scot, mate. You're a British citizen for a start. You're not a Scottish citizen, but regardless.
To vote in support of this motion. Thank you very much.
Oh, God, honest to fucker. Why? The fact that this is even being discussed at this conference, right? Immigration is becoming an increasing problem amongst when I go canvassing on doorsteps. Why? Why do you think it is? Why do you think it is? Do you think it's an issue that's going to go away? Or do we need to just change people's opinions? Do we need to re-educate people? Or maybe consecutively, over the years, UK-wide anyway, right? And I know a lot of people go, in Scotland we're totally different. And no, you're fucking not really, are you? The only reason that the SNP continuously got in with their open borders mantra is because they promised independence time and time again. I'm not disputing that, right? Point is, though, why is immigration becoming such a hot topic? Why has immigration always been such a hot topic. Maybe, just maybe, it's because the indigenous/native people, the white Scottish, as they keep fucking calling us nowadays, are just starting to notice what's going on around them. Maybe, just maybe, that might be the issue here. But no, it's it's a British disease, apparently. So then there was this part that's very fair play to her, like what she says. I have to be honest, if I can find her. I agree with a lot of what this woman said. I don't know who she is, never heard of her before, but regardless, it was refreshing, shall we say. I will say as well, on a side note, she was probably the only person from the entirety of this, 20-30 minute clip that I've got here, who said anything along these lines, but she said the infamous words. She did indeed. So I'm just going to get to it.
Thank you, David. I now call Louise Hogg, who will speak in favour of the motion, to be followed by Morgan Davies for the remit back. Morgan, where are you? Yeah, do you have a seconder? I'll get one from the floor. Seconder, thank you very much, Mike. Louise.
Conference. Behind issues of immigration currently attracting so much public attention, polarising opinion all over Europe and much of the developed world, are demographic time bombs. National populations with an ageing profile, born increasingly not from improved life expectancy, in some cases life expectancy is stagnating, but from below replacement rate fertility. Young adults are having fewer and in many cases no children. While the Global South has seen population growth cause headaches for national governments, countries such as ours have seen 50 years in which populations have required immigration to grow and increasingly simply to avoid decline. This awkward fact, not merely the attractiveness of a supply of low-wage workers, has wedded some democratic governments to high levels of unmanaged or indiscriminate immigration, even when the cost to themselves has been the loss of support from the indigenous voting populations they rely on to stay in power. Over a decade ago, the Scottish Government sought to find out how Scandinavian countries were bucking this trend. The baby box was intended to copy a Finnish programme of parenting classes, healthcare, parental leave, social and practical support. A policy in the event stripped of its power to change the landscape for would-be parents, considering whether and when to start family. Now, Scandinavian countries too have low fertility. The traditional wisdom that only a shortage of houses, money and flexible employment are deterring people from starting or growing their families no longer holds. Some folk clearly are being held back by these considerations, reaching financial stability too late for their biological clock, which peaks before 30 rather than after 45. So addressing these issues should be part of our policy. Alba's 5-point plan for families and existing housing strategy are already a good start. But research increasingly shows that many people decide about children long before adulthood based on other factors. Their confidence in the future, the social and emotional support they can imagine themselves having, both formal and informal, what appreciation society has for the role of parents, what world and what sort of country they believe will be there for their children. At a personal level, young people are wrestling with psychological minefields rather than a demographic time bomb. These are all areas which Scotland, and particularly independent Scotland, can address as well as anyone. In embodying a fair, supportive and inclusive society, we could lead Europe to become a nation where personal decisions about whether to have children or not, if so, how many and when, are all genuine choices and not foregone conclusions.
You know, not really much I didn't disagree with in particular there with what that woman said, in all honesty. Because the reality of the matter is, society over time, and this isn't just limited to Scotland or the UK or even the Western world, you know, you're even seeing like fucking Japan, etc. Like the same issues like post-industrialized nations, etc. You know, but you cannot deny that there is clearly, at least in part, you know, the sort of decline of society, morals, etc., that has played a pivotal role in the declining birth rates of our populations. Okay, back in the day, it was a rarity to see children being born out of wedlock, and if they did have a kid out of wedlock, that kid was also a bastard. But on top of that, the man would have to like propose to the woman. As time went on, it became more and more prevalent for kids to be born out of wedlock, indicating again a sort of decline, morale, whatnot, morals. And now we're at a point now where there's just a lot less kids being born in general. And part of the problem in that respect, again, goes back to education in the sense that we're like empowering women and all this stuff, right? And on the face of it, right, for any women listening, I'm not saying that you can't go and do what the fuck you want to go and do. I'm not one of the guys, but my point here is, though, that there isn't a balance anymore in schools. Like, motherhood is not encouraged or appreciated. Family creation is not taught, alluded to. It's all about feministic crap, about women finding themselves and all this stuff, empowerment. You go, girl, you do you, right? And obviously materialism comes into the fray and whatnot. It's a multifaceted issue. It is, but the solution is not immigration. You should be adapting. You should be adapting. On top of adapting, with this alleged demographic time bomb, which is a reality. I don't even know why I said alleged there. But on top of that, though, there should be some sort of attempts to make it financially easier for those who do want to start families. It should be taught that family creation leads to, and this is statistically provable, by the way, like married women are a lot happier than fucking unemployed or like single women or women who have like focused on careers and whatnot. They talk about female empowerment. What about these things? I'm in my late 20s now, so like there's obviously like a generation that's coming under me now. I'm obviously one of the youngest of the millennial clan. Either that or I'm a very old Zoomer. It really depends what website you look at to figure that one out. But regardless, I can count with maybe now both hands, but still I've got a couple of fingers left to spare. How many people my age have kids? It is a rarity nowadays. And again, no, the solution should not be immigration because it dilutes the population. But in order to allow that occurrence to occur, they have to start to normalise the process of open borders, of inclusion, of diversity, etc., in order to make it more palatable, in order to make it more acceptable, right? But the reality is staring everybody in the face. All these politicians, because they all talk about it, even though they're just humouring you, they all talk about, immigration is such a big problem, and everybody's talking about why is that? Doesn't take a fucking rocket scientist to figure that one out, or a demographer.